how do we distinguish the real from the unreal? Hi, I'm Keanu Reeves. More than 20 years ago, I first played the role of Thomas Anderson in the first film of the Matrix trilogy. These films laid the foundation for digital filmmaking, which made it possible to create a scene like a bullet flying in slow motion. And now we are already thinking about how our great-grandchildren will communicate with our digital copy after we die. Many of us work with computers. We like the feeling of freedom that you experience when you go beyond the limitations of implementation. The computer screen is also a mirror in which we ourselves are reflected. The decisions we make and the world we create. Every day, billions of people live seemingly full lives. And as if in a dream, as if in oblivion. They wake up, get dressed, have breakfast, go outside, and head to work. Most of them by car, and some, maybe, by motorcycle. But what if all of this isn't real? Well, or at least, it's just a part of reality. And maybe not the biggest part. We get confirmation of this quite often. Sometimes you walk through an unfamiliar airport and realize you've been here before. You talk to someone, and a second before they answer, you know exactly what they're going to say. Or you look at them and realize you've probably known them for thousands of lifetimes. Many of us have had that feeling. As if you're constantly living the same life over and over again. Like in a computer game, after a failed attempt, you return to the starting point. Those who believe in reincarnation and past lives say that before being sent to another incarnation, a person is shown their entire life. And during their life, a person recalls scenes from the movie that was already shown earlier. But we can't even imagine what's trapped in the snare of repeating cycles. All of this is usually called by a single French word, déjà vu, as if coming up with a name for a glitch in the Matrix makes everything clear to everyone, and the mind, hearing the code word, calms down. But that's not the point right now, because the idea of the universe as a computer simulation, just a dream, is portrayed much better in another movie. The digital world is just an image. Such ideas are thousands of years old. Millions of people follow major world religions, which teach that everything around us is only a small part of reality, and that death is a shift into another dimension. And with a new birth, the illusion is loaded again. The souls, the essences of all of us, including mine, the essence of Keanu Charles Reeves, are loaded into this three-dimensional world, where we watch a movie about an illusory world that some manage to escape from. According to statistics, between 60 and 80 people have experienced the feeling of déjà vu at least once in their lives. The frequency of this phenomenon has made it possible to identify certain patterns. For example, it occurs more often in people who experience chronic stress and lack of sleep, as well as those who are prone to epilepsy. Age. Age also matters. Most often, this happens between the ages of 14 and 18 and from 30 to 35 years old. Studying this phenomenon is challenging because of its brief duration and subjectivity. But that doesn't mean people haven't tried. In over 100 years, they have put forward about 40 theories related to this phenomenon. One of them is that our memories are actually memories, but from past lives. Swiss psychologist and philosopher Carl Gustav was the first to state this.
Philosopher Carl Gustav Jung.
He recast reincarnation as genetic memory to give his views on the phenomenon of déjà vu a more scientific character. The reason was his own experience. Once, he saw an 18th century painting depicting a doctor. Before that, Jung had never seen it. But unexpectedly, he recognized the buckles on the doctor's shoes. He was able to imagine this detail so vividly that he concluded he must have worn those shoes himself at some point. The ideas of déjà vu and reincarnation fascinated Jung greatly. He believed in them until his death, thinking he had been a doctor in a past life. There is also another version, the time loop theory. Many have heard of the space-time continuum, in which the past, present, and future exist simultaneously on different planes of being, and they usually do not intersect. But sometimes there is that very glitch that allows a person to take a break from the established order of reality. That is, we accidentally pick up information about the near future that isn't meant for us. But maybe it's all different. Maybe there are a great many different realities in which we all live. And déjà vu is just a greeting from a parallel universe. According to the multiverse theory, every second, by making one choice or another, we create a new reality. This concept is explored in depth, for example, in the series Rick and Morty. Let's say you suddenly decide to visit a shelter and play with puppies instead of going to work. In that case, you end up in the reality where you spend the day at the shelter, not in the neighboring branch of reality where you went to work as usual. But when certain lines of the future merge at one point, versions of the future can overlap with each other. And as a result, déjà vu occurs. No matter how strange and unusual this explanation may seem, it is actually a scientific interpretation of quantum mechanics and is seriously discussed not only by animated series writers, but also among leading physicists of our time. Another theory is the hologram theory. In the process of memorization, memory creates something like three-dimensional images with a structured system of connections. That's why even partial information that enters our memory can be fully restored thanks to this ability. If there is some kind of stimulus, for example, a smell, taste, or sound, and it is connected to a past experience, all the information will be fully restored like a hologram. For example, if you smell a campfire outdoors in a place you haven't been before, you might suddenly remember that you actually have visited this place. That is, déjà vu is simply a reaction to a stimulus that you might not even notice. A similar version is the theory of recognition memory. Today, scientists typically recognize three levels of memory: reproductive, recognition, and facilitating memory. Recognition memory is the process of identifying a perceived object or event with one of the patterns already stored in it. For example, seeing a black cat and remembering everything associated with that cat. In other words, we recall some details, but not strongly enough to reproduce everything exactly. That's why the brain fills in the gaps itself, constructing a new version of the past from its own database. The theory of divided attention is quite close to this perspective. From the perspective of this idea, déjà vu is a desynchronization between the conscious and the subconscious. The subconscious registers a certain stimulus as familiar, while the conscious mind pretends to have no idea about it. If we believe this theory, déjà vu is a form of false memory, a signal from the subconscious that is interpreted as a real experience. Neurobiology has its own explanation. It considers déjà vu as a glitch in the hippocampus, or in other words, a desynchronization between long-term and short-term memory. The phenomenon of human memory, despite the scientific achievements of neurobiologists, has not been fully unraveled. Scientists still understand little about the principles of how it works, although some things are already known. For example, in short-term memory, information is stored from a second to several minutes. Its capacity is very limited. According to the latest data, from 7 to 9 items, no more. Everything we pay attention to instantly goes into short-term memory, but it quickly fades from there. This type of memory is often compared to a computer's RAM. Throughout the day, it is constantly at work in many small processes and is cleared when the computer shuts down. And it seems that scientists have even found a physical medium that records all of this, a special protein called ARC, or the memory protein. If the protein is synthesized in insufficient amounts, the brain processes new information worse and more slowly. Sometimes it glitches, confusing something new with something already seen. The problem is that, for now, neurobiologists also cannot explain why at certain moments the brain breaks the usual pattern of encoding information in memory. It turns out that none of the versions we've shown about the nature of déjà vu gives a definite answer. Although maybe in the comments under this video, there will be experts who can break down this mysterious phenomenon. In my view, there are more questions than answers here. For example, I can't say for sure what I'm doing here. I only remember waking up today with the thought that I had to come here. What's important to me is to ask people, I'll ask you again, How do you distinguish the real from the unreal?